Kane. This is my oratory. Let's go. Approximately 8 hours, 7 different classes, and millions of stressed students. Today's education system is deeply flawed. The attempt to conform the way students think and control every aspect of their learning and life is causing more harm than good. Schools today are falling away from the true focus of education. They're replacing effective teaching with needless and tedious assignments, which only overwork students. Since when is staying up until 1 in the morning doing busy work more valuable than having free time to explore passions and learning life lessons through experiences? Schools today are not preparing students to be lifelong learners and successful participants in the real world at an adequate level. Students, I promise there are no wrong answers. Okay, but that's incorrect, you aren't doing it right, and that's just wrong. This represents how schools kill creativity. Students are not given possibilities to explore their areas of interest deeply, as they are forced to follow an extremely structured course of education. Ideas that do not fit within assignment guidelines are shot down and disregarded. Many students cannot succeed in this rigid system that limits their curious natures and personal passions. In his TED Talk, titled How Schools Kill Creativity, Ken Robinson talks about a girl who struggled in school. Her ability to focus and grades were not great, but she loved to dance. She learned best when she was moving, which schools restrict. Because of this, she transferred to a dance school where she became a successful and eventually professional dancer. Had she continued attending a regular school, she would not have been able to succeed to this extent later in life due to the boundaries set around how students learn. These restrictions can prevent learning more than they inhibit it in many cases. They cause students to lose their natural creativity and conform to dull, meaningless standards. In this way, schools often prevent students from flourishing to their maximum potential later in life. Sir, if you were thrown into the real world right now, would you be able to provide for yourself, pay taxes, or even start a checking account? No, exactly. You would be surprised at how many young adults do not know how to balance a checkbook or even simply write a check, but thank goodness they know the Pythagorean theorem and how to balance a chemical equation. Those types of things should be saved for college classes when it is more applicable to your hopeful major or career path. Another thing most young adults do not learn about in our public education system is how taxes truly work. They may spend a short amount of time learning about taxes in classes, but what is supposed to happen when they're thrown out in the real world, where taxes are an everyday factor of our lives? The things students need most in life are not being taught at the appropriate times they should be. Stop, sit, write, listen, learn. The education system is too controlling over students. Schools prevent students from growing and learning at their own pace as intended in nature. Students are forced to change their motives to attaining good grades over learning at their own speed for their own benefit and personal fulfillment. The pressure from schools to keep up and follow the rigid schedule that is loaded with an abundance of work leaves students scurrying to get things done. The repercussion is a shortfall in the quality of their work. Students scratch out work in order to complete tasks at the lowest quality possible while still attaining a solid grade. The demand of the education system for students to excel in grades and scores so they will be accepted into highly regarded colleges causes students to do their work solely to achieve these high grades and scores, rather than with the honest intent to learn. In his essay, simply titled Education, Ralph Waldo Emerson speaks of how students need patience, freedom of opportunity, and ideas to become educated. Students learn best with a limitless soul, searching to grow in understanding and discover new things. Emerson writes, "Now the correction of this quack practice is to import into education the wisdom of life. Leave this military hurry and adapt the pace of nature. Her secret is patience." If these tactics were applied rather than our current system, students could follow their natural passions rather than doing work for the wrong reasons. The American education system is a bureaucracy devoted to teaching kids how to game standardized tests in order to secure more government funding to then teach kids how to score even higher on those tests. The focus of American education is often not on preparing students for the future, but on forcing them to memorize useless information like the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, The result, according to some education experts, is that American students basically learn nothing. European high schools may not have the same pop culture catch, but it's generally known that whatever goes on inside them, they're better in many ways than their American counterparts. Schools in countries like Finland, for example, have effectively given up on the repetitive learning style, which might be why those countries regularly outpace American education scores. Even Poland, where 1 in 6 children live in relative poverty, continually beats the US in math, science, and reading. Now, if we're being honest, this system works for many people. They learn, they flourish in school, which is fantastic for them. But others do not grow and learn the same way. This is a part of the problem, the fact that not everyone can learn the same way. This is why education should not be taught in one lecturing way. They say, be yourself, be an individual. While they expect you to act, learn, and understand the same way, our minds are unique machines, capable of processing mass amounts of information at an incredible rate. But there's one catch. Each of those machines processes in a different way. This one moves very quickly. He understands information fast and doesn't need a lot of practice to know a concept. Now, this one doesn't flow with structured homework and standardized tests. This one needs to work at her own pace, find a flow, maybe make assignments for herself. Throwing these kids into a class and teaching it in the same fashion poses a significant problem. This is why providing a variety of learning methods should be prioritized by schools. A byproduct of today's education agenda is health problems within students. Extreme pressure, lack of sleep, and piles of work are causing kids to crack. No student can be successful if he or she is not healthy. To be healthy, family and friends and extracurricular activities should be valued in addition to education. But schools are not allowing students time for these things. Students can learn just as much about themselves and the world from real-life experiences versus structured courses in school. The film Race to Nowhere by Vicky Abellis talks about how one girl gets stomach aches from stress. She is also sleep deprived on account of large, unreasonable amounts of homework. Additionally, it tells of a 13-year-old girl who committed suicide due to insurmountable pressure from school. Her classes were difficult for her, and she was not getting the grades she desired. Her grades. A list of letters were the deciding factors on whether she should live or die. School should never play a factor in someone's death. For these reasons, along with various others, the education system is functioning poorly. Students are not becoming lifelong learners because their creativity and love of learning is stifled. They're not being prepared to be successful participants in the real world because their drive is not towards becoming more knowledgeable, but towards attaining superficial titles or awards. The highly competitive environment of schools misguides students to want to have great grades rather than discovering the answers to their innate curiosities. The pressure to succeed in work-heavy, difficult classes can result in compromised health and high amounts of stress. This is not how education should be. Students should be guided to become the optimal, personalized version of themselves, not limited to being defined by grades and their struggle succeeding in a flawed education system. Thank you very much.